When you think of medieval Europe and the way of life for peasants, you probably think of many harsh realities peasants had to face on a reoccurring basis. War, famine, knights breaking in their homes and beating them up for fun, more war, more famine, and oh so many plagues. I'm even more sure that you don't think about some ancient Catholic wizard casting Otto's irresistible dance on a bunch of peasants, causing them to literally dance to death. Poor bastards kept throwing natural ones on their wisdom saves. That's right, today on Historical Quarrels, we are going over one ancient Catholic wizard's beef with a bunch of poor people all over Europe. Obviously no one cast a spell on people. However, they may have been psychologically tortured to the point of madness, and so today we deep dive on the dancing plagues of Europe and try to uncover what exactly happened and what could have caused these so-called plagues to occur. Welcome back to Historical Quarrels. I'm your quarrel daddy, Tyler Eckhardt. Get used to that nickname because it's here to stay, damn it. I love it. My favorite nickname I've gotten, okay? If you want me to go by a different nickname, you post something, okay? And I'll try it out. And if I don't like it, then, quarrel daddy's here to stay. No new announcements today. For those of you that listened last Monday, the audio got corrupted, and so I decided to redo this episode, or I guess that episode, and retype up a lot of things, as well as it just wasn't the standard I wanted it to be anyways. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into today's historical quarrel. You are listening to Historical Quarrels. All right. Y'all, unlike last week where I took way too much time on some aspects of Europe that aren't as important to the story, I want to instead focus on a couple of definitions that will be important. Like, what is choreomania? Choreomania, or dancing mania, is derived from the term choreomania, obviously, from the Greek choros, which means to dance, and mania, which means madness. It is also known as dancing plague. The term was coined by Paracelsus, and the condition was initially considered a curse sent by a saint, usually Saint John the Baptist or Saint Vitus, or Vitus, good old Vitus, and was therefore known as Saint Vitus's dance, or Saint John's dance. Victims of dancing mania often ended their processions at places dedicated to that saint, who was prayed to in an effort to end the dancing. End the suffering, end the boogieing, please. Incidents often broke out around the time of the feast of Saint Vitus, or Vitus. Saint Vitus, or Vitus. Dance was diagnosed in the 17th century as Sydenham chorea. Dancing mania has also been known as epidemic chorea and epidemic dancing. A disease of the nervous system, chorea, is characterized by symptoms resembling those of dancing mania, which has also rather unconvincingly been considered a form of epilepsy. And other scientists have described dancing mania as a collective mental disorder, or collective hysterical disorder, and mass madness. And that is what we will be diving into today. There's also another term known as tarantism that happened in Italy that we'll be going over a little after, probably more in like the historic conspiracies part of today's show. So, but as mentioned, these dancing plagues are very well documented, and in several cases sprang up all across Europe at different time periods in vastly different regions, with only one or two main similarities between them being the prevailing dominant religion of the areas and a prevailing belief in the supernatural by the common folk. So let's go ahead, get into it, right? The earliest known outbreak of dancing mania occurred in the 7th century AD, when a man by the name of Fluvidicus Bricdanusus began to spontaneously start dancing whilst in the middle of the street. It was said that Fluvidicus truly knew how to saltat bene, or get down well, as the Romans say. So well, in fact, that 20 other people joined him seemingly out of nowhere and began to sing as well. The dancing became so intense that the people would begin to run into each other and start fights out of nowhere, and this would become what many historians consider the first ever mosh pit. Yeah, obviously kidding about Fluviticus, but the first recorded instance of a dancing plague was in the 7th century AD, and from what I could find, there is no specific place mentioned as to where it happened, only that it did, in fact, occur. Which isn't the best basis for reliability, and is definitely just like a trust me, bro argument. But I just report what I can here on historical quarrels. I do my best, and so just know that the first one I was able to find happened in 7th century AD. Okay. Anyways, according to Justus Friedrich Karl Hecker, and after the Black Death had swept through Europe and the remnants of it still hadn't subsided, in his book, The Black Death and the Dancing Mania, Justus says, "The effects of the Black Death had not yet subsided, and the graves of millions of its victims were scarcely closed, when a strange delusion arose in Germany, which took possession of the minds of men, and in spite of the divinity of our nature, hurried away body and soul into the magic circle of hellish superstition. It was a convulsion in which in the most extraordinary manner infuriated the human frame, and excited the astonishment of contemporaries for more than 2 centuries, since which time it has never reappeared. It was called the Dance of St. John, or of St. Vitus, on account of the bacchantic leaps by which it was characterized, and which gave to those affected, whilst performing the wild dance, and screaming and foaming with fury, all the appearance of persons possessed. It did not remain confined to particular localities, but was propagated by the sight of the sufferers, like a demoniacal epidemic, over the whole of Germany and the neighboring countries to the northwest, which were already prepared for its reception by the prevailing opinions of the time. So early as the year 1374, assemblages of men and women were seen at Aix-la-Chapelle, who had come out of Germany, and who, united by common delusion, exhibited to the public, both in the streets and in the churches, the following strange spectacle. They formed circles, hand in hand, and appearing to have lost all control over their senses, continued dancing, regardless of the bystanders, for hours together, in wild delirium, until at length they fell to the ground in a state of exhaustion. They then complained of extreme oppression, and groaned as if in the agonies of death, until they were swathed in cloths, bound tightly around the waist, upon which they again recovered, and remained free from complaint until the next attack. This practice of swathing was restored to on account of the tympany which followed these spasmodic ravings, but the bystanders frequently relieved patients in a less artificial manner by thumping and trampling upon the parts affected." That's right. They beat the shit out of those people twitching and freaking out. So I want you guys to picture a group of people. Let's just take it to modern times. We don't even have to picture medieval times. So just picture a group of people in Walmart just going through an epileptic seizure, like they're twitching and freaking out and shit. And you guys are just standing there not knowing what the fuck to do. But a group by them just start jumping and kicking the shit out of the limbs that are moving. Is that not hilarious? Man, that probably was a good time. It was a fucking human trampolines going on in Europe. So that's what was happening whenever these dancing plagues would spring up. People would come out and literally beat the shit out of people that were dancing. It was probably just like an odd form of stress relief too, because if you think about it, like in the 1300s, the Black Plague had just gotten done devastating Europe. We're talking a third of like humanity was killed at this point, man. So imagine like a third of everyone you knew was dead. They just straight up died. Especially like the young guys and young girls. Okay. Like all dead. And yeah, that was happening here. So I'm certain there was some pent up aggression. People wanted to get out. But anyways, I digress. Back to what Justus was saying. While dancing, they near the saw no heard, being insensible to external impressions through the senses, but were haunted by visions, their fancies conjuring up spirits whose names they shrieked out. And some of them afterwards asserted that they felt as if they had been immersed in a stream of blood, which obliged them to leap so high. Others, during the paroxysm, saw the heavens open and the Saviour enthroned with the Virgin Mary, according as the religious notions of the age were strangely and variously reflected in their imaginations. When the disease was completely developed, the attack commenced with epileptic convulsions. Those affected fell to the ground senseless, panting and laboring for breath. Like a whore. He didn't say like a whore. I added that for dramatic effect. And for giggles. They foamed at the mouth, and suddenly springing up began to dance amid strange contortions. Yet the malady doubtless made its appearance very variously, and was modified by temporary or local circumstances, whereof non-medical contemporaries, but imperfectly noted essential particulars, accustomed as they were to confound their observation of natural events with the notions of the world of spirits. Essentially, what he said, and this guy really didn't need to add all those, big words together. These fuckers believed in demons and shit. Okay, so the people who were trying to solve the problem had no fucking clue what the hell was actually going on, and that's what Eustace was saying here. He's like, listen, they're more they're accustomed to this world of spirits and curses and shit being thrown down on people. And so he continues saying, it was but a few months ere this demonical disease had spread from Aix-la-Chapelle, where it appeared in July over the neighboring Netherlands, in Liege, Utrecht, Tongres, and many other towns of Belgium. The dancers appeared with garlands in their hair, and their waists girt with cloths, that they might, as soon as the paroxysm was over, receive immediate relief on the attack of the tympany. This bandage was, by the insertion of a stick, easily twisted tight. Many, however, obtained more relief from kicks and blows, which they found numbers of persons ready to administer. For wherever the dancers appeared, the people assembled in crowds to gratify their curiosity with the frightful spectacle. Yeah, I'm positive they appeared in crowds, not just because it was weird, because they probably heard from their buddies, oh, dude, we get to beat the fuck out of some people. Man, I gotta, it's really weird. After my family died and shit, I thought I was fine, just being a farmer, and I thought I'd moved on, and, I don't talk about my feelings as much, but I'm just really, really angry. All the time. I snap super easily, man. And punching these people, I can go about, a week after I beat the shit out of someone at one of these dances. I just don't need to kill anyone anymore. Oh, man. So, yeah, there's a lot of, again, grief and anger to work through. So getting to beat the shit out of some people that may have actually just been pagans who are wanting to perform some, pagan rituals, which we'll get into later. The historic conspiracy section of today's show is going to be a little bit longer because I'm going to be talking more about it, more about things in there. For this, I'm just going to kind of break down what this guy goes over, and we're going to get all this information, and then we're going to, go over all the theories, because it's a theory-filled episode today, guys. I'm so excited. Okay. Anyways, Eustace continues. At length, the increasing number of the affected excited no less anxiety than the attention that was paid to them. In towns and villages, they took possession of the religious houses. Processions were everywhere instituted on their account, and masses were said and hymns were sung, while the disease itself, of the demoniacal origin, of which no one entertained the least doubt, excited everywhere astonishment and horror. So basically, everyone there did not question that it was a demon. They're like, yeah, it's a fucking demon. They're like, everyone's possessed. Okay, that's what he's saying. What's crazy is we actually have a copy of some of the popular hymns that were sung while this was going on. So let me go ahead and play a modernized version that was recreated for us right now.
Love, 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 I want thy love. I want thy love and all thy lovers
Roma, ga, ga, ga. Ooh, la, 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 la. Want that by romance. What you guys think? Beautiful, right? It's a beautiful cover. And, if anyone else says anything, okay, any of y'all talk shit, I deserve it. Yeah, clearly it's not the actual hymn that went on, but people would come up and just start like playing music while these people are fucking freaking out, thinking they're dying or actually dying, like by dancing to death. So, we can also just say that 9-time Grammy Award winner Lady Gaga wasn't that original with her hit single Bad Romance. It was obviously just derivative of hymns that were clearly about God and the Black Plague and nothing else. Anyways, Eustace continues saying, in Liege, the priests had recourse to exorcisms and endeavored by every means in their power to allay an evil which threatened so much danger to themselves. For the possessed, assembling in the multitudes, frequently poured forth imprecations against them and menaced their destruction. They intimidated the people also to such a degree that there was an express ordinance issued that no one should make any but square-toed shoes, because these fanatics had manifested a morbid dislike to the pointed shoes, which had come into fashion immediately after the Great Mortality in 1350. Oh, and I looked this up, man. This is a real thing. They made it so people would only have square-toed shoes. Because, oh man, I'm sorry. That's hilarious to me. I mean, just think about like, all right, you walk into some store and they're just like, hey, you wearing the shoes? Now, them type of shoes around here, boy, get the fuck out of here. You know, we can't be wearing shoes like that around here, boy. You know, we don't take kindly to none of them pointed shoe folk. And that's what they did, man. They fucking discriminated against pointed shoe wearing assholes. I mean, to be fair, I'd probably also like if I saw a bunch of like pointy shoe fucks in my town, I'd probably also like kick them out and be like, hey, what are you doing in here? You think you can be wearing pointed toe shoes in my town? Get the fuck out of here. And I'd probably stop and kick them if they started like having seizures too. That's because, I'm a rational person who does rational things. Like my ancestors. Sorry. I'm pretty certain many of you aren't also laughing along with me, but if you are, then I'm glad you're enjoying this as much as I am. Eustace continues saying, they were still more irritated at the sight of red colors, the influence of which on the discordant nerves might lead us to imagine an extraordinary accordance between this spasmodic malady and the condition of infuriated animals. But in the St. John's dances, this excitement was probably connected with the aberrations consequent upon their convulsions, meaning that they didn't like the color red, which me as a redheaded man, I'd probably get killed by one of these dancers if I was, back in the day. They'd probably try to jump me, I don't know, rip out my hair or something. If I knew one of those plagues was coming and I lived back then and I had red hair, I'd probably just like shave, just like go bald for a day. Fucking just like, I ain't risking it. I don't need my hair pulled out my head. Anyways, there were likewise some of them who were unable to endure the sight of persons weeping. Some of the dancers were like, bitch, don't you be crying. No crying right now. Just like some lady who's like freaking out, like her she has like a stump leg and she's just like dancing on her stump leg and her kid's crying and she's like, none of that. You don't be crying now, bitch. Slaps the shit out of their kid. Sorry. The clergy seem to become daily more and more confirmed in their belief that those who were affected were kind of sectarians. And on this account, they hastened their exorcisms as much as possible, in order that the evil might not spread amongst the higher classes. Because you can't have the rich getting, fucking demonized. That's real bad. It's bad for publicity. Got to keep that PR tight. Obviously, Justice didn't say that, or Eustace. For hitherto, scarcely any but the poor who had been attacked. Because it's the poor who are meant to suffer. Sorry. And the few people of respectability among the laity and clergy who were to be found among them were persons whose natural frivolity was unable to withstand the excitement of novelty. Basically saying, like, the couple rich and, like, actual respectable people who were among these dancers we're prone to doing this type of shit anyways, and we're just kind of, following with the crowd. It's like that one buddy who pretends to be into everything that you and, like, a couple other people are into, even though they're not. Or, like, let's say let's say you get married for some reason, and they've been single for, like, like they kind of, are talking about, they broke up with a girlfriend, and by the time you're getting, like, you propose and everything, all of a sudden they have a girlfriend, and then they're about to propose. It's like those sort of people these rich assholes were those people involved in this. They just wanted to be part of the crowd, and they wanted to make it about them. So, even though it proceeded from a demonical influence, these rich assholes wanted to do it. So, some of the affected had indeed themselves declared, when under the influence of priestly forms of exorcism, that if the demons had been allowed only a few weeks more time, they would have entered the bodies of the nobility and princes, and through these have destroyed the clergy. Assertions of this sort, which those possessed uttered whilst in a state which may be compared with that of magnetic sleep, obtained general belief and passed from mouth to mouth with wonderful additions. The priesthood were, on this account, so they played a game of telephone with this to freak out the royalty. The priesthood were, on this account, so much the more zealous in their endeavors to anticipate every dangerous excitement of the people. They had to make sure that this shit wasn't going down. They had to protect the rich people now. Their exertions were effectual, for exorcism was a powerful remedy in the 14th century. Or it might perhaps be that this wild information terminated in consequence of the exhaustion which naturally ensued from it. Because to remind people of those who don't know what an exorcism is, exorcisms, especially in the 14th century, could last multiple days. And it is a very tiring process where you're kept up all night. They walk around you, shouting shit at you in Latin, telling the demons to get the fuck out of there. And, like, the person's usually, like, writhing, freaking out while they're being exorcised because that's what they believe they had to do, right? That's like, the demon's possessing me. This is what everyone else says the demon does. So I got to do it. I got to freak the fuck out. So what he's saying is the probable reason why the exorcisms seem to work on these, people who are, dealing with hysteria and, like, freaking out was because they were exhausted and they were tired and they were going to stop dancing. If they just let them continue dancing and they had done nothing, it would have gotten the same effect. So this guy's calling the clergy out. He's like, the exorcisms are bullshit. So anyways, the evil, however, was too deeply rooted to give way altogether to such feeble attacks. A few months after this dancing malady had made its appearance in Aix-la-Chapelle, it broke out in Cologne, but the number of those possessed amounted to more than 500. At about the same time at Metz, the streets of which place are said to have been filled with 1,100 dancers. Could you fucking imagine, like I know we have big flash mobs in today's time, but just imagine, like, 1,100 people. Like, not even like flash mob choreography, like fun dancing, like crazy dancing, like your local crack addict just strung out, just being like blah, blah, the whole time. But like 1,100 people doing that. Fuck that, man. I'd never visit that place again. I'd take one look at it and be like, nope. Done with that shit. Anyways, peasants left the plows, mechanics the workshops, housewives the domestic duties. Because, of course, housewives are going to go do that. As soon as they have an excuse to quit their domestic duties. God damn. Obviously not. Ladies, stand up. You shouldn't be housewives. shouldn't have to be housewives. If you want to be a housewife, that's more than fine. Go do it. But you shouldn't have to be. Guys, stand up for your rights. Go join that workforce. Hell yeah. Anyways, to join the wild revels, and this rich commercial city became the scene of the most ruinous disorder. Secret desires were excited. So orgies. I shit you not. And but too often found opportunities for wild enjoyment, and numerous beggars, stimulated by vice and misery, because lots of these ladies were topless. Also, shit you not, that's what was happening. Like, lots of naked girls and lots of naked guys dancing around. Availed themselves of this new complaint to gain a temporary livelihood. Girls and boys quitted their parents, and servants the masters to amuse themselves at the dances of those possessed. So, people who weren't even fucking possessed or like actually going through shit just was like, that looks like fun. I'm gonna go do this now. Which at that time, you probably really did have nothing better to do. It was like that or work till you die. Or die of like some disease. And greedily imbibed the poison of mental infection. Above 100 unmarried women were seen raving about in consecrated and unconsecrated places. How dare they? The consequences were soon perceived. Gangs of idle vagabonds who understood how to imitate to the life the gestures and convulsions of those really affected, roved from place to place seeking maintenance and adventurers. And thus wherever they went, spreading this disgusting spasmodic disease like a plague. Foreign maladies of this kind, the susceptible are infected as easily by the appearance as by the reality. And so here's where we kind of get our first theory. Where these people actually weren't sick, like they didn't like digest. One of the theories is ergot was a pretty prevalent around there, and if you guys don't know, ergot is one of the we make LSD from it, so they could have gone ergot poisoning and been tripping balls, and but it doesn't account for enough of like the other symptoms that would occur in one of these dancing plagues or maladies. And so these guys or, these citizens would just like see it going on. And then because they thought it was a demon scare, they would convince themselves that they were going to get possessed and then begin acting crazy, even though they, it wasn't a disease. They hadn't ingested or done anything of the same like these other guys did. And just did it just because like they thought they had to. They thought that, like, that's how you're supposed to act if everyone's getting possessed. Which is just mass hysteria. Anyways. At last it was found necessary to drive away these mischievous guests, who were equally inaccessible to the exorcisms of the priests and the remedies of the physicians. It was not, however, until after 4 months that the Rhenish cities were able to suppress these impostures, which had so alarmingly increased the original evil. In the meantime, when once called into existence, the plague crept on, and found abundant food in the tone of thought, which prevailed in the 14th and 15th centuries, and even though in a minor degree, throughout the 16th and 17th, causing a permanent disorder of the mind, and exhibiting in those cities to whose inhabitants it was a novelty, scenes as strange as they were detestable. So the shit would continue for like hundreds of years, man. Like, it would just reoccur. And it kept happening until eventually people were like, it's weird that they did that, man. and that's kind of how it stopped. So yeah, after all those guys, grandkids were like, man, that's fucking weird. This is when we get into the Strasbourg event of 1518. So Eustace says, Strasbourg was visited by the dancing plague in the year 1518, and the same infatuation existed among the people there as in the towns of Belgium and the Lower Rhine. Many who were seized at the sight of those affected excited attention at first by their confused and absurd behavior, and then by their constantly following swarms of dancers. Lots of dancers. These were seen day and night passing through the streets, accompanied by musicians playing on bagpipes and by innumerable spectators, attracted by curiosity to which were added anxious parents and relations, who come to look after those among the misguided multitude who belong to their respective families. So, and then in addition to this, the woman who is said to have started went by the name of Frau Twossen. What's her name? You think I'd have it written down in my notes, but you know what? I didn't. Frau Troffe. She began to dance fervently and uncontrollably in the street of Strasbourg. She was the first one. Kept up the dancing for about a week, and after that, about three dozen others joined in. Eventually breaking up, starting to get to around 400 people. So yeah, this was an intense one. This is the big one. This is the one that everyone knows about. It's kind of what like the last YouTube video was named after. But since I'm kind of doing all the plagues and kind of just going over the plague in general, in this episode, I'm not naming it the Dancing Plague of 1518. I mean, you definitely could tell because it's not the same name. Anyways, Eustace continues. Imposture and profligacy played their part in the city also, but the morbid delusion itself seems to have predominated. On this account, religion could only bring provisional aid, and therefore the town council benevolently took an interest in the afflicted. They divided them into separate parties, to each of which they appointed responsible superintendents to protect them from harm, and perhaps also to restrain the turbulence. You know, to get them to shut the fuck up, to stop moving around. So they broke up everybody into like little parties and groups in order to try and like calm it down. They were thus conducted on foot and in carriages to the chapel of St. Vitus near Saarbrunn and Rotterstein, where priests were in attendance to work upon the misguided minds by masses and other religious ceremonies. After divine worship was completed, they were led in solemn procession to the altar, where they made some small offering of alms, and where it is probable that many were, through the influence of devotion and sanctity of the place, cured of this lamentable aberration. So, you know, there might have been actually some miracles going on, potentially. Probably not, though. They, you know, probably after the time of them having to go all the way in carriages to the shrine, that's more than likely what cured them was just the length of time and then, you know, being restrained and not being able to move and like bite off their tongues and choke on their fucking tongues. He continues saying, it is worthy of observation at all events that the dancing mania did not recommence at the altars of the saint, and that from him alone assistance was implored, and through his miraculous interposition a cure was expected, which was beyond the reach of human skill. The personal history of Saint Vitus is by no means important in this matter. He was a Sicilian youth who, together with Modestus and Crescentia, suffered martyrdom at the time of the persecution of the Christians under Diocletian. In the year 303. The legends respecting him are obscure, and he would certainly have been passed over without notice among the innumerable apocryphal martyrs of the first centuries, had not the transfer of his body to Saint Denis. And that's right, St. Denis. Denise. St. Denis. It's actually where Denny's, the pancake house, comes from. I'm kidding, obviously. And then in the year 836, to Corvey raised him to high rank. From this time forth, it may be supposed that many miracles were manifested at his new sepulchre, which were of essential service in confirming the Roman faith among the Germans. And St. Vitus was soon ranked among the 14 saintly helpers. Nothelfer or apotheker. His altars were multiplied, and the people had recourse to them in all kinds of distresses, and revered him as a powerful intercessor. As the worship of these saints was, however, at that time stripped of all historical connections, which were purposefully obliterated by the priesthood, a legend was invented at the beginning of the 15th century, or perhaps even so early as the 14th, that Saint Vitus had, just before he bent his neck to the sword, prayed to God that he might protect from the dancing mania all those who should solemnize the day of his commemoration, and fast upon its eve, and that thereupon a voice from heaven was heard saying, Vitus, thy prayer is accepted. Could you imagine if that was an angel? Just, Vitus, thy prayer is accepted. And that's how all the angels talk. You want to be free of your cancer, little Jimmy? That prayer has not been accepted. You are damned, I say. Anyways, thus Saint Vitus became the patron saint of those afflicted with the dancing plague. Saint Martin of Tours was at one time the succour of persons in the smallpox. Saint Antoninus of those suffering under hellish fire, and as Saint Margaret was the Juno Lucinia of puerperal woman. So there you have it. Which is weird because like the guy like didn't even become like a saintly helper until 834 AD, and as we know, the first known breakout of the dancing plague was in the 7th century AD. I mean, before this guy was even like a saintly helper and like huge, he was just some guy, and that's why it was like known as St. John's dance as well. So, and then let's get into a few more dancing plagues here. So, 1374, there's one that occurred there. And then in 1237, there was upwards of about 100 children were said to have been suddenly seized with the dancing plague at Erfurt and to have proceeded dancing and jumping along the road to Arnstadt. So, and that was about 13 miles straight from Erfurt to Arnstadt. Just 13 miles straight, these kids were jumping and dancing. And when they arrived at the place, they fell exhausted to the ground. And according to an account from an old chronicle, many of them, after they were taken home by their parents, died. So yeah, and the rest remained affected to the end of their lives with a permanent tremor. So they just, poor kids, just straight up a permanent tremor for the rest of their lives. And a bunch of them just fucking died. Which I imagine, like, if I jump and hopped for 13 miles, and like just like the entire time kept jumping and hopping, I'd probably die too, to be honest. So, surprisingly, they all made it there though. That's impressive. Another occurrence was related to have taken place at Moselle Bridge at Utrecht on the 17th day of June of 1278, when 200 fanatics began to dance and would not desist until a priest passed, who was carrying the host to a person that was sick. Upon which, as if in punishment of their crime, the bridge gave way and they were all drowned. Fucking nuts. A similar event also occurred as early as the year 1027 near the Covenant Church of Kolbig, not far from Bernburg. According to an oft-repeated tradition, 18 peasants, some of whose names are still preserved, are said to have disturbed divine service on Christmas Eve by dancing and brawling in the churchyard, whereupon the priest Ruprecht inflicted a curse upon them that they should dance and scream for a whole year without ceasing. The curse is stated to have been completely fulfilled, so that the unfortunate sufferers at length sank knee-deep into the earth and remained the whole time without nourishment until they were finally released by the intercession of 2 pious bishops. It is said that upon this, they fell into a deep sleep, which lasted 3 days, and that 4 of them died, the rest continuing to suffer all their lives from a trembling of their limbs. It is not worthwhile to separate that they what may have been true and what was the addition of crafty priests in this tale. So, in addition to this, we have a bunch of cases of Tarantism in Italy. And this is a hysteric behavior originating in southern Italy, believed to result from the bite of the wolf spider Lycosa tarantula. So from a tarantula bite, made people fucking crazy in Italy. So it was originally described in the 11th century. The condition was common southern Italy in the province of Taranto during the 16th, 17th centuries. There were strong suggestions that there is no organic cause for the heightened excitability and restlessness that gripped the victims. The stated belief at the time was that the victims needed to engage in frenzied dancing to prevent death from tarantism. Supposedly, a particular kind of dance called the tarantella evolved from this. And by the way, this is a southern Italian folk dances. So because of this, there's like a form of dance that formed out from this like movement of limbs. So a prime location for such outbursts was at the church of Galantina, particularly at the time of the feast of Saints Peter and Paul. On the 29th of June, the dancing is placed under the sign of St. Paul, whose chapel serves as a theater for the Tarantules public meetings. The spider seems constantly interchangeable with St. Paul, The female tarantulas dressed as brides of St. Paul, because St. Paul was getting it, man. He was getting with all them Italian ladies. As a climax. I'm sorry. The tarantulas, after having danced for a long time, meet together in the chapel of St. Paul and communally attain the paroxysm of their trance. The general and desperate agitation was dominated by the stylized cry of the tarantulas, the crisis cry, and "Aye!" uttered with various modulations. So like "Aye!" like that. I'm sorry if I blew out your fucking eardrums. Francesco Cancelleri, in his exhaustive treatise on tarantism, takes note of semi-scientific literary and popular observations, both recent and ancient, giving each similar weight. He notes a report that in August of 1693, a doctor in Naples had himself been bitten by 2 tarantulas, with 6 witnesses and a notary, but did not suffer the dancing illness. Cancelleri in part attributes that this illness not only to the spiders, but to the locale, since tarantism was mainly seen in Basilicata, Apulia, Sicily, and Calabria. He states, when one is in the hold of this ill-wished beast, one has 100 different feelings at a time. One cries, dances, vomits, trembles, laughs, pales, cries, faints, and one will suffer great pain. And finally, after a few days, if unaided, you die. Sweat and antidotes relieve the sick, but the sovereign and the only remedy is music. So, again, there's and this is one of the theories as well, as to like what could have caused it. But to keep going on, a couple more of these cases. So he goes on to describe some specific observations of the malady, typically afflicting peasants. Alone or in groups, the malady typically affected peasants on hot summer days, causing indolence. Then he describes how only treatment through dancing music could restore them to vitality. So in this passage, he explains, and we found the poor peasant oppressed with difficult breathing, and we observed also that the face and hands had started to become black. And cause his illness was known to all. A guitar was brought, whose harmony immediately that he was understood, began first moving the feet, legs shortly afterwards. He stood on his knees. Soon after an interval, he arose swaying. Finally, in the space of a quarter of an hour, he was leaping, nearly 3 palms from the ground, sighed but with great impetus that it terrorized bystanders. And before an hour, the black was gone from his hands and face, and regained his native color. We actually do have a common Italian, tarantella, like for the dance. So like, some song to accompany. So that way you guys can get a feeling for how groovy it was, because it was pretty cool. Just so everyone's aware, I'm not fucking with you. This is tarantella, tarantella Neapolitana. It's trying to pronounce that right. You gotta learn my Italian. But yeah, this is the type of music that they would come and play, and people would dance to get rid of like this poison from this tarantula, which is hilarious because this is totally the stereotypical Italian music. And this is a form of song or music that was used to like cure people and like help people from this spider bite. That's enough of this music. So yeah, it's I don't know, racist. Is it racist? I don't fucking know. But that sort of music, the standardized Italian music, is just used to cure people. So in recent years, tarantism has been defined by its connection to dance music. In the 1990s and 2000s, people began rediscovering the genre of tarantella, and in particular, the pizzisha. Or pizzica. It's an Italian folk dance originally from the Salento Peninsula and Apulia, where, again, those tarantulas were biting the shit out of people and causing people to get black hands. So, also in the regions of Calabria even and Eastern Basilicata. So in 1998, Salento began hosting an annual music festival in Notte della Taranta. Musicians tour throughout the region, and the festival culminates with a large late-night concert held in Melpigiano. Composer and musician Ludovico Einaudi directed the festival in 2010 and 2011 and released his album Taranta Project in 2015. So that kind of brings us to the end of today's historic quarrel in terms of like, we've gotten through like all this shit. Let's go ahead and hop into the historic conspiracies.
Historic conspiracies.
Okay, so first off here for the conspiracy theory tinfoil hat crowd, let's go ahead and get into this. So there's a bunch of hypotheses that have been proposed for the causes of dancing mania, and it remains unclear to this day if it was a real illness or just like a social phenomenon. Online, we had some guy claim it was the Catholic Church. And let me go ahead and pull up his little review here. So, oh gosh, what did he say? We all know it was the Catholic Church and in the conspiracy to manipulate and control the masses. Stop lying and stop hiding Vatican secrets. And that was like on review for a book about the dancing plague and the but besides that, one of the most prominent theories is that victims suffered from ergot poisoning, which was known as Saint Anthony's fire in the Middle Ages, because that shit was fire, dog. But also, that's how we make LSD now. Let me go ahead and pull up for you. Ergot. So, LSD comes from ergot fungus. It's a group of fungi that grows on wheat, and the reason why for that theory is the fields around the area where people are experiencing these dancing effects and going crazy. There is a bunch of potential like ergot poison that could have been happening. It was a common thing to know. There was a bunch of wheat farms, and so that's why a lot of people think that. However, the effects from ergot poisoning and the typical symptoms from that do not match the symptoms enough to what was happening with these dancing plagues. However, during floods and damp periods, ergots were able to grow and affect rye and other crops. Some historians link ergot poisoning to phenomena like these plagues, and even the Salem witch hysteria, suggested by Oliver Sacks. Ergotism can cause hallucinations and convulsions, but cannot account for, again, the other strange behavior most commonly identified with the dancing mania. Other theories suggest that the symptoms were similar to encephalitis, epilepsy, and typhus. But as with ergotism, those conditions cannot account for all the symptoms. Though encephalitis is a curious one. So just a bunch of people are fucking brains, man. Get all fucked up. Anyways, numerous sources discuss how dancing mania and tarantism may have simply been the result of stress and tension caused by natural disasters around the time, such as plagues and floods. The recurring waves of the Black Death, other natural disasters, would have combined with the dawn of the Reformation to make for a great deal of uncertainty and challenge for the people of Europe during this time period, which makes sense. I mean, everybody was like on edge, essentially. Like, am I going to die? Is there a God anymore now? Like, I'm not sure. We have all these smart people saying, maybe. And then all these other smart people saying, yeah. So they're freaking out. So the shared stress among everyone, and since this, again, primarily affected poverty, who were less literate, who had no means of like really studying things and would just like very easily believe what they were told, these people would have danced to relieve themselves of the stress of poverty of that day. And according to Deborah Hyde, the spontaneous spread of this phenomenon through social networks played a significant role. She says, it's hard to deny that the dancing mania was marked by social contagion exacerbated by stress. Outbreaks occurred along trade routes or reoccurred in the same areas where people had knowledge of the format. In other words, beliefs and behavior can travel just like pathogens. And then another popular theory is that the outbreaks were all staged, and the appearance of strange behavior was due to unfamiliarity. Religious cults may have been acting out well-organized dances, so like a flash dance, in accordance with ancient Greek and Roman rituals. Despite being banned at the time, these rituals could be performed under the guise of uncontrollable dancing mania. So it's kind of like a smart workaround, essentially. Eustace Hecker, whose book we're reading from, described it as a kind of festival where the practice known as the kindling of Notfir was carried out. This involved jumping through fire and smoke, an attempt to ward off disease. And Bartholomew notes how participants in this ritual would often continue to jump and leap long after the flames had gone. So, but again, there was no fire at all of these. There wasn't a fire. It could have just been the movement they were trying to do, and they're just, trying to do with what they could with what they had, but they weren't trying to jump through smoke. So, it is certain that many participants of dancing mania were psychologically disturbed, but it is also likely that some took part out of fear or simply wished to copy everyone else. Sources agree that dancing mania was one of the earliest recorded forms of mass hysteria and describe it as a psychic epidemic, with numerous explanations that might account for the behavior of the dancers. It has been suggested that the outbreaks may have been due to cultural contagion triggered in times of particular hardship by deeply rooted popular beliefs in the region regarding angry spirits capable of inflicting a dancing curse to punish their victims, or a tarantula bite needing some music to cure yourself of that poison. But I, again, like to remind people that clearly David's huge 69 from the internet was correct, as ergot is the main ingredient to make LSD. So the whole thing was obviously a Catholic Church false flag operation, where they used LSD to induce mania among its believers to cause them to fall further into belief and rely upon the church even heavier. Clearly, this is the truth. And if you say, oh, well, how did the Catholics synthesize LSD from ergot? Wouldn't that technology have been hundreds of years away? Well, you know what? Fuck you. And that brings us to the end of historical quarrels. Well, you guys did it. We got to the end of today's episode. Big shout out to everyone that's been listening. Seriously, thank you guys. I've been having so much fun making this show. I feel like this was a drastic improvement over how last week's was going. And so I hope you guys did too. If you liked what you heard and you felt like this added some value to your day, made you laugh, made you chuckle, like, comment, subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Let me know, how I'm doing, how I can do better. Anything. If you didn't like it, fucking tell me you didn't like it, man. It's fine. Do it. Okay. Just engage with me. Engage, Cage. But yeah, no, seriously, thank you guys. I hope all is doing well. This is the part of the show where I typically ramble a bit. I kind of go over some plans for the show, but not today. I think instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ramble. I've been working on the other show that I'm doing. That's going to be primarily YouTube for the ancient board games, and I'm getting ready. I'm getting close to being ready to shoot the first episode of that. I do want to record at least 6 to 7 episodes in advance, because there'll be something I release monthly. Once a month, there'll be an episode on a board game. There's going to be some sketch comedy to it, but it's going to, explain what the board game is, show how to play it. I'm going to have some hopefully if I can get it, some props and stuff. And I'm going to have a copy of the board game that I film and do a whole bunch of stuff with. And if you guys want to support something like that, or if you want to just support Historical Quarrels, please go to my Patreon. You can subscribe there if you can. If you can't, dude, don't even feel bad. Fucking just, share the show. Share the show. Get it spread all over the place with everyone that you can. And that's more than enough, man. It's all about growing the show at this point. Talk with me too. Like, seriously, guys, feel free. I'm not going to be weird or anything. I'm just some dude. I'd like to get to know you guys. I'd like to get to know my listeners, so don't feel, if you feel weird about it, I guess if you feel weird about it and you don't like talking to people, no worries. But if you're just like concerned that I'm going to be like, oh, why is this guy like talking to me? No, of course not. I I never feel that way. So, reach out and you know what? You guys have a good one. I'm going to cut this off before we even get to an hour. So it's another kind of shortish episode, but have a good one. Spread the quarrels. Quarrel Daddy out.
This is